decision, you wanna jump into the motion right away? It's pretty straightforward.
I think so.
Yeah, you wanna move that the, People's Assembly be held at Anakla this year? Yes. Is there a second here? Second by Connie?
Wait, when?
Oh, and when? Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's harder to choose, we wanna make sure it's the right date, but I think if we can start with that and then,
In October works, because that's good weather, decent weather. November is when you get into the freezing.
So if we're looking at October because there is a holiday in there.
It's a federal election as well.
Are we thinking of doing listening sessions in regards to the housing panel stuff?
So October 11th weekend, that's the long weekend because there's Thanksgiving on the 13th.
So we should avoid that one, right?
Yeah.
And then the election might be on
The 21st?
21st?
When I was speaking with Kathy in regards to when, she was proposing the weekend of the 18th, like so the 19th and 20th, if we were going to,
October?
yeah. I thought we would bring it to councils.
Do we need 1 day or 2 days? I think we struggle to make it 2 days, right?
I think that would be the biggest struggle, especially trying to, well, when we have the People's Assembly in Port Alberni, we basically rent the whole Barclay and part of the Tyee and somewhere else. So if we're gonna do it in Anakva, which I'm not saying no to, would be a challenge to bus people back twice rather than once, if that makes sense.
But we can,
Are we gonna try?
we do the impossible.
we do.
So, move that the People's Assembly be held in Anakla on October 19th.
Yeah,
Is there any other thing we need to the decision?
Did we move it? Did we move it already?
yeah.
I just want to make a comment.
Oh, great. Oh, okay. Discussion? There's a motion on the floor. Cletion and Trevor.
Yeah, I'll use my late father's lingo as and take it one step further and take it and because rather than have it the motion say the next meeting, how about designate the House of Huet and the place of the People's Assembly to be there and just designate that People's Assemblies, future People's Assemblies happen on their lands.
The mover, okay with that? Or do we have a mover yet? You're moving it, Charlie? You're okay with that?
I'm comfortable, probably nice to just try it once and see, but I, I think, at least every year to plan to.
Who's the seconder? Fine. Are you okay with that or not?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, I mean, we can always change it, there's nothing in stone.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, I don't see why it wouldn't work, we've done it before.
Yeah.
That was just our first crack, we learned what we needed to do different, so.
And I just want to express the reason why I say that is because, Coralie mentioned, the amount of resources we put out for housing our citizens here in Port Alberni, and that's a lot. And we have infrastructure and places to house our citizens at home. And, the more we move our business home, the more we're gonna support our businesses at home. And I think, anything to do with the People's Assembly is a decision-making body, and the decisions of the way it should happen we should start making efforts to making those decisions on our homelands, getting our citizens out to our homelands.
Okay, Trevor and then John?
So I was just gonna say that if we're gonna do it, we should just be busing them down and they shouldn't be staying in our businesses, other accommodations that would help.
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna mention, this motion just basically gives the the executive director, the initiative to make the arrangements happen. So we're not officially calling the People's Assembly yet, so we can, at
Yeah, I
that
read.
motion,
We're just saying
we
where,
we can
where
add,
it went.
yeah.
John?
Yeah, so I'm okay with having it in our territory. Beyond just concerns about logistics, I'd like to really, really stress the point that this has to be like, we're doing business when we're there. We don't waste time. We can't, because I imagine that a lot of stuff is going to happen. And if we have time after for other stuff, then we do that. But we do everything we need to do first, and then everything afterwards. It has to be that way, or else we're not gonna be able to get through the important stuff like the auditor and any legislation we're putting forward and the budget requirement. Like,
That'd be a problem with communication material.
once we start, like, once we get quorum, we hit that agenda first. Like, to the point of like, no special guests, no anything else, just like,
Consider done.
yeah.
Totally agree.
It's gotta be, it's
Yeah.
gotta be.
Totally agree with you.
It's gonna be,
Totally agree. Okay, any more discussion on the motion? I think we should only add the 19th and 20th,
Okay.
just in case. But we're gonna be so efficient, we're gonna get it done in one day.
And I recall this came out from, I think, a few people assemblies back. I think it was Louis Johnson that stood up, and I think maybe Marge. But I recall Louis standing up talking about, that we should, move our venues to the homelands and have people's assemblies down there.
Okay. Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Motion carried. So just so we're clear, all we've done is chosen the date and location.
Yeah, so we can start making the arrangements to do what we need to do on our end.
Okay, next, strategic plan committee decision, Charlie Clem.
So we had technical difficulties with one. I made a spreadsheet with my briefing notes to submit, and somehow it just didn't show up on the spreadsheet, and then I didn't the briefing note.
There's no
Yeah.
material.
Technical difficulties. Yeah. So it, well, I just like,
Community consultative group, is that what you call it?
No strategic plan committee.
yeah, I'm hoping for maybe even
Oh.
discussion still, but,
Do you wanna table it, or?
no, I think it'd be a good conversation, because it's coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, we have an opportunity to set up either a committee or maybe even a working group, but I'm just hoping we give it the attention it needs this year. New council, I've already actually seen, like, the HGV referenced our 2019-22 strategic plan already, and I'm like, well, how is that possible? We haven't officially,
Good.
it's not official yet, so
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that because I think there's fine tuning that we can.
Here's what I was thinking, so everything that we do arises out of the treaty. We have a treaty implementation committee. But that, I'm just saying, we could say that, send that over as one of the functions. That work? And I guess the only reason but it won't stop it being referred if you're not satisfied with that, but the only thing we gotta take into consideration, we have a budget that I'm trying really hard to stay within this year. I think we've always managed, right, but I would wanna stay within that. Okay, so are we okay with that then, Charlie, that way?
Yeah.
Okay, then, 8, where are we? Aye. Discussion. Independent Housing Authority discussion, Charlie. Oh, you're real busy on this one, eh,
Well,
Charlie?
yeah.
Holy smokes.
Well, I wanna mention, so, working as a team, so this was a miss on my part. 'Cause it was kinda like for the last agenda, like, for the last meeting that was canceled on the 25th. And also just, with the kinda moving target of housing and working with Kathy, it should be a decision. And there's a bunch of briefing notes in the package you'll see in there. So it's really, there's a bunch of topics and there should be some decisions, so I just wanna clarify that. So, yeah, just start with that, and I'll go through the briefing notes in order.
Yeah.
So, as you all could probably understand, is try my best to wrap everything up into a nice little package of talking about all what's involved with this housing. We have lots of goals, we have lots of energy, which is great. We have a, interim, panel report. We have, money this year, we have a motion from the last meeting where we had till August 15th to present a new plan. So that in the briefing notes, that's what I call the action plan, 2019 action plan. But with all of the stuff going on, I felt it was important to bring these briefing notes to this meeting at this time. So I'll just reference all of them before I get into the first one. So the first one on the list is the Housing Authority feasibility. So basically, recommendation 13 in the interim report recommends forming a housing authority. Also in Appendix H of the panel report, it has a breakdown of the work that was done by the Assembly of First Nations in 2012. It was a comparative report comparing housing authority models. So in my mind, and basically we have until spring legislature to approve HFN public body, if we're going that route. So I thought it'd be good to start talking about it now. Because I just want to say, I see this, if it's happening, it'll be basically like we're forming another HDB, really. Like all the planning has to be done, we're starting another entity, we're giving its resources like you mentioned last night, and it's gotta be done right. And if we're going that route, it's gotta be, start now. So that's what that's talking about. The action plan is from the motion from the last meeting we had about what's proposed for this year and spending the money.
I'm lost too. What are you looking at, Charlie?
Oh, it's just it's in the OwnCloud, the,
Housing Authority feasibility, so.
8I.
yeah. So that should be the first briefing note in the section.
This is the one that Kathy drafted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
8I, is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah.
Oh, it just sounded, sorry, because it sounded like you were talking about a couple of different ones. So I'm just trying to follow.
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing my best here. So the next one, the briefing note that's labeled Housing 2019 Action Plan, that is the plan suggested in replacement of the 6 modular units. So that's basically the plan to spend this year's money. Then basically linked to both of those, I made one called Housing Plan Continued Social Housing Regulation. So I just wanted to speak to our current housing program issues. And really that, yeah, so I'll speak to that. So I'll start with the first one then, just in order. Okay, so I tried to connect them all, if that makes sense. Yeah, so basically, in our FAA, it allows us to start, form a housing authority. So there's some setup there, it's just waiting for us to act on it if we want. So basically, again, with any big project, or, this is to me a big undertaking, we need to do a bunch of work. There's already great work out there, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's a lot of work done, like I mentioned, from a comparative report from the Assembly of First Nations. So basically in that, it references 5 options. So what are we gonna do with housing? What's our governance structure for housing moving forward? What do we want it to be? So my goal here is to either shortlist this, so the work can begin, including with finalizing the housing report. So just put some context to it. So that we have 5 options that are presented. We could go with a housing committee and have, what we're doing now is an internal housing department, or SD10. So we have a social housing program, everything's internal within the staff, the maintenance is completed by our staff, That's option number one. Number two is to form an independent housing authority. Number three is an HFN-owned housing cooperative. 4, an HFN nonprofit corporation. And then 5 is basically, it's an independent housing authority, but it's a third party. And this could be possible agreements with someone like Macola or Luma.
Yeah.
So these are options that we should be going through in the next 6 months, say. But in my mind, we need to shortlist it so we can not look at all of them. Like I don't believe we'd want to consider one. So kind of today, I'm hoping for us to say, we're not gonna go there, we're not gonna do what we're doing now, and we're gonna cross the Standing Housing Committee off the list as a decision of government. And then as we go through the work in the next 6 months, that's not even considered, because there could be time wasted there. So basically, the goal of this whole thing is to show like this is gonna be a pretty big thing. It's recommendation number 13 in the interim report. And so basically I'm hoping to have this, like this is a big one, like there's a lot of recommendations from the report, but forming a housing entity, like a nonprofit, like it has to be prepped for the spring legislature and basically be operational April 1st.
Yeah.
And you know, it's pretty big, like currently we have 10 units. By the end of fall, we're gonna have 19 units, so our housing stock is growing. We're definitely not gonna be able to manage in-house, that's for sure. And so anyway, I just wanted to really highlight this process is gonna be started in my mind, and just have our leadership aware that possibly by April 1st, we'll have a separate housing entity that there'll be less political, influence. There'll be a separate group. There'll be a CEO or a manager. There'll be its own board led by community members. So that's basically outside of number one. That's how it'll look at any other option, is having a separate own housing group. And then there's lots of decisions after, as we move forward. But I just wanted to mainly, I guess, ask if in open discussion on.
So you're
That's what-
making a recommendation, you wanna make that recommendation a motion?
Yes, if we're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that this has been put together. I think we should focus on independent housing authorities, whether they be third party or just number 2. I don't know much about housing cooperatives, but I'm concerned about politics being brought into the cooperative, depending on how it's structured. If we have an independent housing authority that's based on policy that we set up, my concern is ensuring that housing policy is enforced. And I'm not certain that number 1 or even number 3 would be able to do that. So that would be my preference, but if it's just a full-scale investigation and I admittedly don't know much about how cooperatives can be structured to get away from family politics, then that would be good. But yeah, I'd be quite supportive of making sure that we at least investigate 2, 3, and 5 specifically. I think a nonprofit corporation would be better for market housing.
So that fits right into the motion.
Yeah.
What you're saying, yeah. Okay, did you move it, right, Charlie? Did you second it, Charlie?
I will.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion to accept the recommendation that the executive council identifies the options of our interest, and that the acting ED for the next 48 hours will complete the research to identify the best option of the recommendation. In September. Ignore that next 48 hours. Okay, there's a mover, seconder, discussion? Is that captured that way then in the motion? Okay, discussion?
You meant 24 hours.
Yeah.
Trevor?
Just a little
No,
more
I'm talking
discussion.
Saturday and Sunday. It's Karen, Kathy's not back till Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie?
Yeah.
No, Trevor, then Charlie, right?
Show their house on Saturday.
Um,
where does the nonprofit, where would that get housed?
It would just be a HFN public body, separate, again, independent entity, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it references it in the FAA already, as a, yeah,
To be able to.
yeah. And again, so just a little bit more, could go on forever, but
Okay,
basically,
Charlie, go
there's a, oh, sorry, there's a benefit, so in this work, we'll find out, like, BC Housing, when we apply for monies or initiatives to BC Housing, you have to have a nonprofit before you even start. So there's some things that are gonna guide it anyway, but out of all those models, there'll be better advantages of getting funding, so we'll find out through the research, but, and this will come back, I could see at least once or two more times before this spring.
More discussion? Hearing no discussion, motion carried. Okay, vehicle policy.
So that's the first briefing note, sorry.
That's
Oh,
why I was
yeah, there's-
asking, right?
Yeah.
So it's really tricky, right? Like, it's a fine balance of having like 6 different housing agendas and trying to get them under one.
So you're actually got A, B, C on this one then, right?
Is there,
This one's pretty straightforward. Robert,
Okay,
can I just move that we go with approving option 1?
Okay. Seconder?
This
Okay.
way, this way.
Yeah, I'd like to speak a little bit.
Current plan is what? The 9 houses or
what are you looking at doing?
the 9 units?
It's the action plan. The action plan. Yeah, this one. So yeah, just to speak to this a bit, so again, we're trying to achieve a bunch of things. I'm gonna use $2 million is the original budget that was allocated.
Yeah.
Because to me, the 300, if it was coming from anywhere, would have been from the House of Wade, which I don't wanna do. So I was trying to, working with the team, stick to 2 million
Okay.
for the housing.
Mhm.
Basically, the work that the team has done, basically we can have 3 houses moved in to the lots probably by early September, so in a few weeks. They'll be basically jacked up, foundations put under them. Those will be, in the last, if you remember the last council meeting, there was a briefing called phase 1. That was the phase 1 of moving existing houses in, and those will be a quick turnaround. The second phase of this plan would be 2 duplexes, new construction. So on our lots in Upper Niagara, there'll be 2 duplexes, basically on the lot where there's gonna be a 6-plex. So that would be part of the plan. From there, you mentioned trailer earlier. There was a free trailer available in Port Alberni that was in really good shape. Basically, we said yes, we just have to haul it down. So that's in the works, and we'll find a creative spot for it or we can use, but it's in good shape and more to help with the immediate needs. So that's part.
Home or a
Yeah,
trailer?
yeah, no, so that was there, so the attempt through all this was to try to get to 10 units, as the motion mentioned last. So currently we're at 9, committed to 9 hard units. The last one mentioned in the 9 would be converting the gas bar, square footage into a 2-bedroom unit. So, the gas bar operation will be out probably within a few weeks. Everything's set up in Ostrom's to the current CEO's plans to relocate, the gas bar, so it would be.
How difficult it is to convert, Charlie, the 4-plex back to a 4-plex?
We could, it would take more money just to split that.
I mean, looking at the demographics right now, it seems like there's a need for a lot of one
Yeah.
person units. I mean, just by the people staying down there now,
Yeah,
like there's a real need for that, I know that,
yeah, that could be,
Yeah.
that's hard for sure.
so. Okay.
So that would get us to 10.
Yeah,
So we're aiming for 10 units, but basically, hoping to go in debt for the new ones. So, not many things have return on investment that could pay for the loan, so, hoping to propose to go into a mortgage situation with 2 duplexes. Obviously, put down the minimal down payment and free up some money this year. And I was hoping to connect Paul on this, but basically, our current CMHC loan for the 3 houses is up for renewal at the end of the month / next month. And we could hopefully just buy that out now and free that CMHC loan. We have 10 years left on that full loan. As Paul knows best that anyone, there's a lot of administrative work to be finishing up this, loan, and again, it's kind of like, if we had a bunch of houses under this loan, like 12, it might be worth it, but the amount of administration just to deal with these 3 houses right now, and it's a separate audit, I'm proposing we just buy it out and be free of that. And it also, to me, everything that's kind of been happening, I'm hoping, in my mind, I'm leading it up to handing off this program to a nonprofit by April 1st. So we need to get everything lined up and clear, so there's not all this weird old things going on. And that would be one of them, I think, just get those houses in, full control of each of them. The 3 of them.
Connie?
So buying out the loan, don't you think that the finance committee should have a look at that and have some discussion about it? I think so. I think so. I want finance committee to look at that. And then I'm not opposed to building houses. I'm just wondering with it, so now we're gonna spend 1.3 million on septic field, temporary septic field system.
No, that's all of it, that was just part of the, so the 9 and the septic field?
Okay,
We
so
do that.
regardless, the temporary septic field system, to me, which I understand why, but when is it gonna trigger to push and get our sewer project complete? I hear lots of obstacles about it, but, okay, so these are the obstacles. So what are we gonna do to get it done? Because we have all of these lots now to develop with no septic system. So we're gonna put in fields or whatever the plan is. So we're just tacking on costs when, why don't we just finish the project and tie it all in? Sorry.
Definitely, I agree with you 100%. Yeah, currently it's with MOE for approving, and it's some headaches that come from that, but basically there's a design for the plant, it's like ready to go, and we just Ministry of Environment approvals for the project.
Could anybody be kind of brave and say that that's going to be in September, October?
The plan is to go for request for proposals in the fall, this fall, for the design, or construction of the plant. So the latest is next fall for commissioning, so the project to think about.
Okay, next fall, this
So, yeah, construct it.
2019 fall or?
No, 2020, yeah.
That's a long ways off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just seems, I just don't want us to keep putting money into something that we've already got, like, we're this far away, and we just keep, like, not opposed to the fourplex, I understand the urgency, but that building is now worth about $2 million, like, I mean, we just keep pouring
Yeah.
new money into old, and we've got a perfect opportunity to, let's go. And so there are some hangups. So what are the hangups? Let's get it done. Why does it have to be a whole year away?
Well, just constructing, the construction schedule alone is close to a year, I believe. It's pretty in-depth. Like, it's a $6 million project, so it's pretty big undertaking. Yeah, so it's definitely, I agree with you 100%. But I think, yeah, it's been 2 years away for the last 8 years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's literally
I mean,
been.
it's the
2 years
it's
away.
the Johnson Street Bridge.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, definitely is.
So, sorry, I just don't wanna keep spending money when we've got something that we need to finish.
So, based on what Connie's saying, Charlie, and this is for Paul and Kathy to hear, I would say, do whatever it takes to get us to construction, and based on our approved budgeting plan, because I think our budgeting plan is, we're talking 2 years, right, Paul, to construct that? So, but what I'd like to see is, like, if we can get to getting that done sooner rather than later. But there's another thing that it may prolong it, but if we threw it to mix and we said to HCB, here, make it a business, because we want Banfield to start tying into it. That,
I think that's a separate, you know,
that's,
yes, they've doing some of that work.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so,
No, I'm not asking for any, I'm just making a comment.
and for sure, I think, what we're planning with this phase, there's not really any other options for sewer after this, like, we can't keep really putting, like, there's a plan to do a communal septic field beside the existing one by the three houses, there's some area there. But these three could go on that and then have, like, the rest of the lots, there's nothing you can really do till that's sewer's done, so. And it's about 40 to 50 grand for that.
So what's the amount of, with Bonnie's, how much are we putting into the
It's about
septic?
40 or 50 grand
Oh,
for the
it's not too
temporary,
bad.
yeah. Which is good, it's kind of newer, like,
Yeah.
working with, John and the housing panel, they weren't quite sure, they were using even up to 300,000 as a temporary number, but.
Okay, any more discussion?
So just the CMHC loan, I want that to go to finance.
So would that be part, you want to add that to the motion?
Yep.
That was my question.
Yeah.
I'm like, are we deferring this to the
Yeah.
finance?
In the motion, that it would be referred to.
Okay.
Even the other loan to go for the duplexes, the same.
Paul?
So we can bring that briefing up to finance.
The term of the current CMHC loans expires August 31st. So would it be possible that if it's okay with finance, it doesn't have to come back to EC, we can just pay it off? Because we need to know by then if we're gonna pay it off or renew.
We need to have a finance committee
Yeah.
meeting ASAP.
Is that added to the motion then, or does that need to be added to the motion?
Well, I have, so what I've written was just to defer this briefing note to the finance committee and
Can we do a special executive phone in just to deal with that motion?
Okay, okay.
Last part of the direction on this one, and this was before I heard about the recent things, but, I'm hoping to push for an assessment of the Rance Island houses as part of the housing plan. We need to make a decision on what we're doing with those houses, and I think the first step is to get an assessment done by.
I want to briefly, you got two citizens who are looking at it in the last little while, and they're willing to pay for whatever they need to build the house up to standard. All they need is give us the authority that this could become our house and we'll fix it. I mean, that's a win-win.
sorry, I'm gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nobody passed the motion, nobody moved or seconded.
Oh, I thought we had a move.
No.
I moved, but there's no second.
Oh, sorry. I thought Charlie moved in a second. Okay.
I've been
Okay,
waiting.
John
for
moves,
that time.
Trevor second.
This is important.
I just did the reading, so thanks.
So did I.
Oh, that's a good team.
Look, I've got notes. You were just gonna spend money.
Okay, any more discussion?
Then buying out the CMHC, the benefits of that are,
We saved $40,000 in audit fees in the next 10 years, all the work to write the audits, and it would free us of any agreements with those three houses. And I think the benefit, we could do it or not, but look at a lease or a lease over to the current owners, or,
Yeah,
the tenants.
that's a good one.
But also, just freeing it up, so it's, I think that there's some, it's just something we should talk about
and
soon.
then were they, the tenants are there, are they renting their own or are they just renting?
Well, it's just renting.
Yeah,
But they do claim they were promised at the beginning that it was rent out, but it was just such a weird time with the treaty.
Yeah, they were rental units on the understanding that it becomes theirs after paid off.
But it wasn't formal, it wasn't
Yeah.
formal.
Do we bought the other ones, Doug? Well, they were just a little bit of time left on, we bought them up, saving the capital political effort to manage it. Believe you me, it was a big headache on our plate. Because it used to occupy every meeting agenda of our committee membership meeting. And they would last probably
anything that we could, use from them before we buy them out? Is there anything that we're paying into that there's any kind of money that could go towards the houses before we put them out?
Well, it's just that, just a kind of maintenance fund or whatever that we're supposed to fund this out. There's nothing really substantial. Like, it's a decent, loan, but it's just so much work to do. Again, even talking to our CMHC rep, if we had like 12 or 15 on a bigger scale, it's worth doing all this, but just for 3, it's been. And then we might get into more soon, right? It's the Section 95 program still out there. We might look at it in the future, but.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, we're approving the current fund, correct? With some
So the last housing one,
Okay, that's it.
so just, to me, it's really important, it's my portfolio. It's basically the social housing regulation, we're not following it currently. You know, we have to basically act as a responsible landlord. There is maintenance being done that should be done, and really the tenants feel like we're not acting as a landlord. Half the reason it bugs me is because we have our other internal policy for the Jordan principle, where services won't be affected if 2 departments reporting at each other, saying it's not us. And I feel like that this is here, that there's really we don't have a proper energy internally to manage the housing program, to maintain it. And even if we are transitioning out at the end of the year, we still need to give harsh direction that we're, you know, cleaning the chimneys, cleaning the dryer vents, anything that, or, you know, fixing rot. They really, I don't feel we're acting like a responsible landlord as a town. So I don't know what it's gonna take, you know, we have all the pieces in the legislation, to do it, and basically, part of this briefing note I wrote, start a tenant council, because in that regulation, it has a setup for having a tenant council set up of 3, and really they're supposed to be the voice for tenants, and that's supposed to be to hold us accountable, and that's never happened. And you know, even though we do have a short time left, I just feel like we need something needs to be done. Like this is, you know, if a house burns down tomorrow and something serious happens, we basically say we've done nothing to prevent it, really. Well, actually, we have 10 units currently in our social housing program. So all of the housing that we basically rented through our social housing program.
So you wanna make the motion to adopt?
Well, yeah, you could basically give clear direction that we, HFN's accountable for maintaining these places. However it happens, whatever,
Okay, you wanna move that?
I'll move it.
Seconder, completion? Discussion? Connie?
What are the social houses? I thought we didn't have social houses except for elders care that we put in place.
So our only
And the
way,
CMHC.
our only program internally is the social housing regulation. We don't have any other kind of policy, we don't have nothing to work with, so every house we've purchased, or even the 3 in Port, they're under the social housing regulation.
So even when everybody signed their agreements to for $1?
No, those are separate, those are leaseholders. This is just for, like, for instance, like the 2 units in the gas bar right now, the 3 houses up the hill, the cabin we moved from Sarita last year, the 3 here, and then the 1 in Grappler, where he's living. All of those are, again, it's just because we don't have any other housing policy.
Oh, okay.
So again, like, you know, in my mind, we've probably all been landlords here. The tenant says, hey, my tub's overflowing or my toilet's wrecked. Like, the landlord should be there that day. Like, it should never get fixed or come in 2 weeks. Like, it's pretty serious in my mind. So we need to make sure this happens.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, Independent Housing Authority,
That's what we did.
is that the one? Oh, sorry. Vehicle policy, sorry. Okay.
wasn't me.
Stephen Rayner.
Yeah.
Singer?
Raider.
Rayner.
Yay.
Who calls you Rayner? Rayner. Yeah.
So, Charlie said that it wasn't a part of the package, I don't,
It was put in this morning.
okay, okay.
The policy, I put in the briefing note, but not the policy that was in it.
The briefing note was pretty basic, it's, the policy is, we didn't realize that there wasn't a policy in place, I had assumed that there had been one. I went to go and implement the procedures, after we drew them up, but I have no overlying policy, so we drew up a vehicle policy, updated it for, to fit what we require, and then, I was just looking to implement the policy, which will govern our procedures for, use, booking, repair and maintenance, and, what do you call it, acquisition or replacement, so. Yeah.
We do it as a policy? Now we're wearing.
So,
John?
So I had a question in regards to this. I know that you have, like, the administration is the one that sets the policy, but it doesn't need to be adopted by council because it's a policy that rests under just the
Yeah.
administration, correct?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it would be more clarifying if we understand that this policy should be followed by members of council as well? Should we just like reiterate that we should be considered employees for the purposes of the policy, or is that already clear?
in the policy, its use will be defined in that for the, under the procedure.
Yeah.
For you guys for, council use, and then separately for administrative use for staff. So it'll just be, there's different approvals that are required from, our supervisors compared to your supervisors and such like that. But that will all be defined in the procedures. The policy is just going to determine which procedures we require and give, I think, a basic outline.
It does mention that the executive director can approve anyone other than employees.
Yes. I gave her the final word, that's kind of generally the go-to in the organization, so.
So what do you need?
What's the recommendation to approve the existing policy? And you
Yeah,
just said
it
we
was,
don't have a policy. What existing policy we're approving, we don't have one?
That policy, the policy that was proposed, sorry. The.
So it should be approved, the proposed?
Proposed, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, this was something that I was working on when I was working with you.
Procedure.
Yeah.
But you-
So
yeah,
that
the
policy was a part of it.
So we did,
I think it was a purchasing policy and the policy.
yeah, it integrated a bunch of stuff. We worked on trying to look at taking, so we need to have a bunch of portions of different policies in that. So use will have reflective portions of the HR policy in it that will dictate, say, if there's, improper use, this is how we would go through ramifications of that. Or say the booking or such like that, it'll all be kind of reflected in the policy, but will coincide with the other existing policies like HR and such like that. But yeah, so the procedure that you develop or that you help develop, that is waiting to be enacted right underneath this thing right here.
Yeah, that was the reason that, remember when we first got the vehicles, there was a little book in there?
Yeah.
And you had to record the mileage and record the purpose of your everything, the date and all that kind of stuff. What happened to that? That would be
We have a
introducing it.
totally different system. So we've actually completely redone the entire vehicle booking system, the vehicle management software, numbering of the vehicles. So we're kind of pulling this all together as one package. So there's going to be a different digital booking system. There's a new software to help manage the maintenance operation of the vehicles and the assets. There's going to be procedures, new dictated procedures on how to book and how to use, and it all gets kind of falls under the
So you're
amazing umbrella.
replacing that old
Yeah, everything will be, so right now what I did too was, just on that one is, I got a carbon copy books, we're having them printed up. And so each truck will have a carbon copy book. There's not gonna be the level of inspection that, was required previously, because, well, you know, not everybody's a mechanic. And so I wouldn't expect them to be able to identify mechanical issues. So the trucks are going to be on a maintenance process where they're going to be consistently looked at and inspected. So 150 point inspection about every 2 months is what we're looking at. And so then there's not going to be that requirement to be able to do the investigative. So we're just trying to look at streamlining the process and making it safer. Also along with that came like the vehicle, the GPS and the vehicle maintenance hardware that goes into it to help that work along with our software to help determine maintenance and such like that, other things that, you know. So just trying to look at making sure everything's above board and streamlining the process.
Okay, thanks. John?
So that kind of fits the above board is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
From a political perspective, I think the use of trucks is the thing that's interesting our citizens as well as members of government. So information in regards to the use of the truck, it sounds like, it doesn't sound like, it does say in there that whenever a truck is to be booked, you're supposed to state what it's used for,
Yeah.
correct? And then you're only supposed to use the truck in response to what's stated there and approved.
Yeah.
Now, what is the mechanism for checking that, right?
So we have full GPS trackers, right, on all the vehicles. So we could check if we had to the location of the vehicle. And that, I say the GPS trackers, it's this is a WCB thing that we had to implement because of the travel of the roadway. And we don't have good call-in procedures. So the only way to, I say skirt, but we're not skirting, we're falling well within WCB. But to skirt the call-in procedure, we need to know the location of the vehicle, that it has arrived at its final destination. And so that's where they came in, the GPS trackers. It's not a governance thing completely, it's more of a safety thing, so.
John?
Yeah, so on that then, if someone, say a citizen wanted to come in and check the use of the trucks, specific not to the truck but to the user, is that possible?
So at this point right now, we're just going through the process of, yes, we can right now. It takes a little bit more investigation than it will once the processes are implemented and streamlined. Some of the stuff that we have looked at previously was Bluetooth fobs. So everybody would carry a Bluetooth fob, and you fob in your vehicle and the vehicle would not start unless that was fobbed in. We still have an option to do this, but generally we're going to implement it starting with vehicle logs and that. And so you have to sign out a vehicle, you're approved to use the vehicle, and we try to lay out some process in there that falls within industry standard. So marshalling yard and such like that, to make sure that we're falling within bounds within our insurance and such like that. The free insurance requires it to be like returned to a marshalling yard at the end of the day and such like that. You know, to not be, it needs to be, there's a bunch of things that they are asking us to do, and I just reflected that in the policy.
Okay.
Just to make sure everything's above board for operation. Like, I just want to make sure that we're not in any way skirting any rules by ICBC, WCB, or anything like that. You know.
So if, are you done, Joe?
Yeah, I had one more, but it can go after.
Okay, in regards to administering the safety of it, and recognition that, like, I guess what I wanna get at is, are we just doing this to meet what WCB is saying? Because it seems like we've met that requirement, okay, we got this technology in our vehicle.
Yeah.
But in terms of recognizing that we're so isolated,
Yeah.
and then our vehicles are used throughout, so like, for example, Robert was using, and to go out to Cerrito and do some forestry stuff with the forest, so in terms of response, like, who's gonna be responding to that, and that, like, we're administering it, but also who's gonna respond to the safety of
So-
checking in and following, recognizing that, you know, 911 is, right?
Yeah.
The go-to, but in recognizing that in terms of the isolation, who's gonna be responsible for that?
So The process is what we're looking at is we purchased spots, and part of the implementation of of everything for the vehicle safety and the vehicle management, well, we'll have a spot with each vehicle. And so, and then that's a callback to, and the procedures will all be developed underneath our vehicle policy, but just how we would respond to certain emergencies and such like that, and then it defines who the call goes to. So generally it'll go to the head of the department and then up to the executive director. Kind of be the same as Price's alarm. It comes in to me, and then if I'm not there to respond, it goes to Kathy. And so we'll have multiple levels of kind of like due diligence to be able to make sure that we don't miss those emergency calls. And then and there will be some general response plan. It's going to fall just within the standard planning of calling, you know, the ambulance or RCMP. We don't have any extended extraction that I know of, but they are working at on some stuff in Banfield for not emergency response, but for patient travel.
Right. And I asked that because in the accident that we were just in, there was that 911 announcement call on there, but there is no, like, if we got those trackers in there as for those GPS ones, there was no response to like through our administrator to say, you know, to shoot an email out, or I don't know how the procedures work.
So
You know, internally, like to say that, you know, are you okay, and do you need help or anything other than that, other than relying on the 911 thing, and then didn't even hear anything out of that either.
So like just for the like administrative vehicles, when they leave, we turn the GPS on, and when they arrive at their destination, we turn it off. So we know when they're going to be operating the vehicle, and within that period there, then we watch for the arrival and like departure. So we they sign the vehicle out, or you know, Shannon may sign the vehicle out and say, I'm going to depart at 1 p.m. I arrive at 3 p.m. And then during that period, she would enact the GPS unit, and we would be able to kind of track her arrival. And that's kind of part of the WCB requirement is, even though we do have the GPS trackers on there, and for this, like for the staff, we need to be aware of where they're traveling and when they're traveling, so that we can watch for those items and such like that.
I'm gonna comment. I call it overkill. I'm at the point where here's the truck, I'll use my own truck. I don't wanna get involved with, I gotta go sign this out, I gotta go do this, I gotta do this, blah, blah, blah. The next thing I know is taking up part of my time that I need to do my work. I just rather use my own vehicle.
I understand.
For me, that's overkill, all the stuff that's happening.
The,
And then the reason I wanna say that is, people say, oh, I seen the truck parked at Roberts on the weekend. Yeah, maybe because I came in Friday night at 2 o'clock in the morning from a meeting in Victoria. Okay, and that's what our staff needs to say. When somebody phones them up, yeah, when we know they were at a meeting. Oh yeah, and I seen that they're on the weekend, yeah, I've gone to weekend meetings. I've attended a lot of weekend meetings.
absolutely.
And people need to know that, and staff need to know that, so that they can tell the people, yeah, Robert and Derek do attend weekend meetings. That's
Definitely.
part of their duties and responsibilities. I seen one of the emails where it was implying, you know, that there's no work on weekends. Well, there may be no work on your weekends, but on our work, there is work on the weekends. And I take quite offense to some of the crap that Derek and I take about the trucks. And I'm at the point where I say, have your truck, I'll use my own truck for business, so I don't have to deal with that stuff.
I apologize, this is all required through, Workmen's Compensation Board and such like that, and they did give me some reference of some organizations that didn't fall within these bounds, and they were, I think, hit with about $70,000 worth of fines, for not being able to fall within their requirements for, they call it safety of the employees. And so I'm not trying to implement anything that's out of the bounds of what's required in the industry
No,
standards.
and I don't mean you, Stephen, I just mean the whole process, right, to ICBC down. John?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's why I'm gonna drop my vehicle wherever I go from now on. I think what we can do is, I'm going to assume that the staff that are kind of the ones who are helping council with things like Rachel and Veronica, Nicole, even when they're both not available, Kim. They'd be the ones able to sign things out for council, is that correct? Is that something that would be contemplated in the policy, or at least?
So they would control the booking, they would be able to give the approvals for, approval for a standard trip, but anything that's, within the policy, you know, and working within the bounds of WCD and that, any trips outside of kind of like work time and that, then that it would be kind of like a Robert approval to you guys, but that's just how we laid it out in the policy because of the executive director, so we asked her or the senior level director to be able to give the approvals for kind of extended travel, and it just carried over into the executive council.
Yeah, I follow up on that. So the thing that concerns me about this travel schedules, and I do know that Robert and Derek and Trevor are busy traveling quite a bit outside of normal work hours. There are policies that exist that limit travel in regards to when you do a full day, plus you shouldn't drive home past a certain amount of distance after 9 or something like that.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that's an official rule, but these are the kinds of things that are concerning to me in regards to what exactly are our liabilities and how should we orient it. So it's good. I can see how it's frustrating, but I think that just puts the underlying importance on own vehicles and that sort of thing as well. Yeah.
So, and absolutely, we did do, I'm trying to recall, because we did look at some parameters for operation like that, that are set by industry standards, say WCB and other governing bodies like that. I can't recall if I'm pretty sure we put some reference of those into the procedure in operations of what the recommended allowable travel times are for that. But yeah, just the whole premise of it is just to alleviate the liability factor, just to make sure that, you know, there's not that, we're going to fall within the working balance of what's set by industry standard. Sorry.
So I'm just looking at this, I think it's important. I mean, there must be a difference. So we have public officers and government members. The policy should reflect that. So we're not just employees. In fact, we're not treated like employees.
That was their concern.
Yeah, and so I think if there's gonna be policies in place in regards to our travel, there should be a difference. But I imagine if there was a province or the feds, if they went prescribed with the same thing, they'd be stuck in places. And there's no way they would, so they, you know, we do travel beyond the hours that we should be traveling. And it's just.
So there's a different use procedure for the executive council as there is for the, just because the approvals are different and such like that. So
I just want to make sure that when we put policies in place that, because I'm actually not too sure, I'm looking at this briefing, I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from. Well, one, I see it because we don't have one, but it's just, I think it's going to be important that we should, when it comes to executive council, their discussion with Robert or with council members in regards to just our considerations when it comes to that, because, you know, we're getting into our 3rd term now, and things aren't slowing down, they're getting busier and we're traveling more, and I just don't want to see our policies being barriers to the work that we have to do.
absolutely, but I will say that, you know, I try to fall within industries, like within the industry requirements, and
Okay, so what's the industry requirements for council? Like, there must be in regards to
it's a gray area. just
provincial
because
or federal areas,
like
where they travel.
a little bit of a gray area when it comes to, say, requirements for WCV, because you guys aren't covered under WCV. So, but it is use of a company vehicle, so WCV is very, it's a tough discussion. So, just needing legal,
Because this is like, kind of like when you see Trudeau and his brigade of vehicles traveling. What's the difference between, what I'm trying to get to is what public officers to government members, there must be some consideration there, in regards to what that looks like.
absolutely.
What is it?
I know the answer to that. So government members aren't permitted to have their own vehicles or drive them when they're members of government in BC or Canada. They have their own drivers. And it's separated out through, not even their political office, I think it's a wing of the actual crown in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it's a bit different because they're cabinet ministers and that sort of thing. Elizabeth.
Not for provincial cabinet,
Oh, they don't?
but the premier, I think, is the only one who has his own car and driver.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just trying to think of all the times I probably went home after midnight in my car, and it was a government issued car. And this is an interesting discussion, I don't know the answers to it in the provincial level.
Asking you, Corley, John, yeah, my vehicle told me that I needed to take a rest. Yeah, I was like amazed.
That's awesome.
I drove from like Port Alberni to Port Renfrew, and then it was like it recommended that I take a rest. And then I did it again when I drove back, and then I did it again when I drove to London.
Did you listen?
But knowing that, so then, you know, then obviously it's documented somewhere, Ford has it somewhere. So then, you know, they're obviously, you know, with ICBC rates going through the roof, and then, you know, everybody, the vehicles are just getting smarter and smarter every day. So then, you know, like, okay, I got to Port Alberni at 9, I could be home by 10 if I leave right now. So then you're pushing the envelope of, you know, traveling, knowing that, you know, we all need to take care of ourselves. And so I think that, you know, to me it almost sounds like exactly like it's what Car2Go does, right? I don't know if there's something separate, but then, you know, how much is too much, and how much is overkill. So then everything gets documented to like speed, to travel time, or how long you've been traveling, if it's been 4 consecutive hours of trying to get to a destination. Yeah.
We're at
Did we-
G.
Did we move the motion or the recommendation?
Yeah.
No, there
Oh, I wanna get where we're at on 8J. There's
we're
the
still at the
no
vehicle
mover.
policy, there's no,
Or-
there is a motion, but nobody's moved it. There's still lots of questions in regards to.
Okay, let's move it in second and then have discussion. Moved by Lisa, seconded by John. There. Connie, or, yeah, okay, Connie.
Yeah, I guess just the clarity of what the difference is for, what is a political rep and what is an employee when we're not paying into WCB.
What do we do?
But I'm not opposed to having something, I think we're all accountable to our citizens, whether, you know, sometimes we get frustrated with what they question on what we're doing because we are at meetings and we are working, but that's not the point. The point is that we serve the citizens and it's all, everything is owned by the nation, and as such, we need to be responsible for it. And so having a guideline, I think, as outlined by ICBC or
WCD.
except we don't fall under WCB, so we need clarity there, I think is good. And then it shows that we are holding up what we're supposed to be holding up as leaders.
Absolutely, and you know, in the procedure, when we develop these, they'll be put forth for review and recommendation, as well as they will reference where these specific documents are that would say set some parameters on the use or on the booking and that. So when in the procedure, we'll lay out where the links are, how you would acquire the information, and showing a reference to them. And then, you know, there will be a review and a recommendation. I'm guessing through executive council, maybe something like that.
Okay, Sergeant.
So I guess the only thing I want to say is that I support like having a policy, and I think we should go with this one that we have, because it's going to, especially if there's going to be a good accountability mechanism, we'll be able to show the citizens that we're actually doing things the right way. And showing is gonna be the only way we're gonna prove anything to the citizens. It's the only way to build trust and confidence in that. And then, you know, once we get that established, and then we'll move on to the next item. But at that point, I think this is gonna be the only way, is showing, not just telling.
Yes.
So I think we'll be
I think
be in a
it'll
better
be,
spot, because the only thing I'm wondering is if we're not, if we don't fall under WCB, you may wanna build in an automatic mechanism for the executive director to okay, Robert's okay. So like for me to book a truck, let's say, I have to ask Robert, and Robert approves,
Yeah.
right? And then I use that truck for whatever. If the WCB stuff is funky and we're not sure, then you should have a two-step approach. I still have to ask Robert,
Yeah.
but then just to make sure it's okay with everything policy-wise, the executive director or designate just signs off on
Absolutely.
it too. And I don't know if that's kind of already built in with that executive director can approve anything. But then we won't have to go back and change it if we
Absolutely.
can find out that the.
so we can reference just that specific clause in the policy when we look at finalizing the development of the procedure for you guys, making sure that, you know, that in reference, it would be she would be the final approving body if required. But I definitely,
required,
yeah, I definitely wanna just, you know, we haven't completely, we delved into and copied over what we did for administration and started to adjust it for executive council. It'll be developed over the next little while, and then in that, you'll be able to have a review of it. Should be good, I think.
Yep. Robert?
So in the briefing note, it just says approve the policy. The comment Steven's making, it sounds like we should be approving something, but it should be coming back for us to review.
Yeah, we should have a document.
So I'd like to add that to the motion.
To amend the document that we were handed out.
To amend the briefing note to, because it says approve existing policy
Yeah,
option one.
that's,
Well, it's the policy that was, it's not existing policy, it's,
Approve the policy.
yeah, the one that they put
But
forward.
what I'm hearing is there should be work done and it should come back to us. Because
It'll be
if we're
the-
just approving the policy, I'm not getting everything.
Well, the procedure will come back for review, and then that's going to be below the policy. So the policy right now is, it's an overlying document that doesn't go enough into detail to be able to determine what the use, maintenance and all that is. But the procedures below it will dictate that, and those are the things that, we'll bring back to you for review. And then those will be able to dictate exactly how it's all, implemented.
Oh, so we are approving the existing policy.
Proposed.
Proposed? Okay, it's proposed. Okay, John?
So I would move that we approve the proposed policy and then conduct a review in whatever the end of the next quarter is.
Okay. I have no problem with you guys putting in there, and
Fine.
December.
the, review of the procedure, or for me to come back and provide a copy of the procedure for review.
Okay. Discussion, we're gonna move in a second, and we've already had the discussion. Okay, hearing no more discussion, motion carried.
Thank you for the conversation over that, I appreciate that.
so we are now on,
That's Stephen, this will be quick.